What should an axolotl's tank look like? Let's talk about it. I'm back and this is Axolotl 101. I'm just going to be listing the main things you should see in every good axolotl tank, but if you think that I missed anything, just leave it in the comments and help each other out. So first things first, tank size. For one adult axolotl, you're going to need a minimum of a tank that is 2 feet long, which will be about a 20-gallon in the long dimensions rather than the tall. Axolotls care a lot more about floor space rather than height, so make sure that you're giving them that. However, bigger is always better, considering some axolotls can reach over a foot in length. My Spinelli is 15 inches long, and she would have never gotten that long if I kept her in a 20-gallon tank this whole time. So I suggest personally 2.5 feet minimum for one axolotl. You're going to need to add an extra foot of floor space for each additional axolotl, which will equal to about an extra 10 gallons each. I find 30 to 40 gallons to be perfect for one axolotl. Here's some examples of 2 40 gallons. And here's some examples of 2 20 gallons. Next, axolotls can make pretty calculated jumps, so they're going to need a lid on their tank. I suggest picking one that allows for good airflow through it instead of a regular aquarium hood, which will just trap warm air in your tank. I recommend these reptile terrarium lids, but just keep in mind that if you get a metal one, you're going to want to keep your water a little bit lower just to avoid any rust. These are also handy because they allow you to use pretty much any fan on top of it rather than having to buy what are usually overpriced aquarium fans that aren't very strong and rarely fit on the lip of tanks. You can also get this egg crate material from most hardware stores that you can cut to size for your lid. This can also be handy for dividers if you're introducing 2 of the same sex together. This will not, however, be effective in separating 2 different genders because stuff gets through. So axolotls are dirty creatures with huge bioloads. Unlike with fish, most filters will not be strong enough to suck up an axolotl's turd, so it's suggested to filter your aquarium for 3 times the size. Spot cleaning poops as you see them will still be necessary, but having triple the filtration will save you if you miss one or if it gets stomped. Turkey basters are a great tip for spot cleaning. I would definitely suggest devoting one to your tank. There's lots of different filters you can get. I prefer internal filters just because they make less noise in my opinion, but hang-on back filters are an awesome choice too. If you have a larger tank, canister filters will be the best you can go with. Now just keep in mind that most axolotls don't like too much flow in their tank, so you might have to adjust this. I always suggest keeping a sponge filter in every axolotl tank too, because these act as extra filtration without adding too much more flow. They also add aeration to the tank, which is great for promoting fluffy gills. You should also see a method to keep an axolotl tank cold when you're looking at an axolotl aquarium. This could be a fan on the tank, an aquarium chiller right beside it. It could also be an enclosed room with an air conditioner. Unless you're lucky and you have a basement that stays cold year-round. If so, I'm jealous. Might be a given, but along with the cooling method, you'll also need a thermometer to make sure the cooling method's working. Now, since axolotls don't like light, it's really important to have a couple of hides for them to use. These can be anything from aquarium hides in caves, ceramic pots, mugs, PVC pipes. You can even glue together some rocks and make your own hides. Just make sure that you're using water-safe rocks and glue. Reptile hides can be really aesthetic choices as well. Just be sure that you're getting aquarium-safe ones. Or even mason jars. I've yet to find an axolotl that doesn't love them. They don't seem to know that we can still see them. A couple of quick notes. If you're using reptile or aquarium decor in your tank, just be sure to check the inside for jagged edges and file those down if you find any, because axolotls will nick themselves on it pretty easily. Also, if you're keeping a bare bottom tank, you will want to make sure that your hides sit flat on the ground. There isn't any big gaps or anything that they could get their limbs stuck in, because if they do, they will thrash around and leave without their limb. Oh, and also if you use mason jars, aim for the kind of squared ones rather than the round ones, unless you want to hear that clanking up against the side of the tank all the time. Some other decorative things you can put in the tank are things to add to height, since some axolotls really like to sit up high or hang off of things. You can get reptile hammocks to put in them. Just make sure that you get the ones with suction cups, not metal hooks. There's also different places that make magnetic hides that stick up on the sides of your tank. Some axolotls really like. I know one of the companies that does that is Strudy's. They 3D print them. Live plants are also really beneficial for this, and they can also keep the nitrates down in your tank. Just keep in mind that you're going to need low light, cold water species of plants. Some examples of cold water, low light plants that would do well in an axolotl tank are Anubias, Java fern, Java moss, Marimo moss balls. Just be sure to get the largest, strongest, and healthiest plants that you can, since axolotls like to squash them. Personally, I like to just keep plastic plants with my axolotls because I find it's easier to sanitize the tanks in between rescues, but also, as you can tell from my username, my thumb is blue, not green. I'm lucky to keep aloe and pothos alive. And the last and probably most important thing to take from this video is substrates. Ditch the gravel, guys. I know that a lot of people, the first thought that they have with setting up an aquarium is that they need water, a filter, and gravel. Besides not having the right parameters and just letting an axolotl literally rot away, that's probably the most common reason axolotls die, is because they're full of rocks and can't pass anything else through. Sadly, once axolotls start showing the signs of impaction, they've usually become too weak to survive the surgery to have them removed, so this is a death sentence in most cases. I see a lot of people say, well, they have that in the wild. Yeah, they also don't live as long in the wild as they do in captivity, and it's because we take away the risks. Adult axolotls should only ever be kept on fine sand, rocks larger than their head, bare bottom tanks, or you can also put tiles in the bottom of your tanks. Personally, I prefer bare bottom just because it's easier to keep clean, since tile or rocks will collect crap in the crevices. Sand is really beneficial for tanks because it gives you lots more surface area for your beneficial bacteria to live. However, just keep in mind to be careful not to get this in your pipes. If you have a hang-on back filter with a significantly low intake, also keep that in mind. The axolotl might kick it up into the filter. The impeller won't like that. Now, fine sand is an impaction risk for baby axolotls, so you will want to wait until they're at least 6 inches long to use this. Any axolotl smaller than 6 inches should only be kept on bare bottom. So there's a basic checklist to make sure you're on the right track with your axolotl's aquarium. If you feel like I missed anything, like I said, just leave it in the comments.